Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 6andOut podcast. I'm Craig. Thank you for listening. I'm joined here again. We have the trio back together. Brett, thanks for joining us. How was your vacation, mate?
Yeah, g'day guys. It was absolutely beautiful. A little bit too short for my liking, but if you ever get a chance to head over to Fiji, I strongly recommend it. Beautiful part of the world and super friendly people.
Good. Yeah, Arnie kind of teased last week. He was saying Bula Bula was how you were greeting everybody these days. So the big reveal
Yeah, pretty much.
was Fiji. Very good. And Arnie, you're with us too. Arnie, you look like you're in a much more pleasant location compared to what we were talking about last time.
Oh, that's right. Life is a lot more comfortable, I'd say. I have a few more freedoms. I'm pleased to say I got my bag. I found my bag and it's returned home
That's
with
good.
all the important contents that keep me civilized.
So that means we don't have to name and shame the airline like we promised last time. That's a great result.
Yeah, well, you could, but I think that was part of the deal, right? You wouldn't name and shame them by the next podcast if all that stuff returned. So yeah, all good.
It's good to hear. It's good to hear. My update is that I have been coming out the other end of COVID, which is kind of I guess it gives you a nice positive look on life because you appreciate the little things, being able to get out of the house and being able to actually feel better and stuff like that. So I'm taking that as a positive spin at the moment. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about the Asia Cup, which is right around the corner. So we will delve into some of the things about, we'll focus on India, we'll focus on Pakistan, all the teams in Group B, and then maybe get into some predictions as well. So I think it would probably be remiss of us if we didn't start with Group A. Given any time you have a Pakistan-India encounter right around the corner, that seems like the best place to start. So why don't we pick up with probably, would you agree, the favourites in India and have a look at their squad?
Yeah, it's they're pretty much all of these countries. They've fielded what's pretty close to a dress rehearsal squad for the T20 World Cup. So they're almost full strength. The sort of notable admission being Bumrah, who's struggling with a back injury at the minute. But the squad is basically any sort of, as we come to know from any Indian squad, it's just super well balanced. You're going to start with Rohit leading from the front at the top of the order. Be interesting to see where they go with some of the options they've got in their batting lineup. Probably expect KL Rahul to pair him at the top of the order and followed pretty quickly by Kohli and Sky, who I think we're probably all on the same page expecting a pretty big tournament out of him. He's risen pretty quickly to number 2 in the world in the T20 batting ranks, and this could be, for his perspective, the tournament on a national stage that he really sort of stamps his mark on international cricket.
Yeah, I think they probably have the most established, and we can get in and talk about Virat Kohli and his form, which is probably really the only question mark that they have in their top 6 or 7 when you think about it. You mentioned Sharma and Rahul. The only question mark around Rahul is whether you seek to bring somebody like a Rishabh Pant up earlier. I mean, that's really the only question mark we have around the openers. Then Virat Kohli, his struggles recently have been well documented, but it's still Virat Kohli, so you have him in the team. Sky has been in incredible form. Pandya is almost walks into that team. And really only when you get down through Sharma, Rahul, Kohli, you had to have Pant and Sharma, which is an incredible top 6. Do you really, I think, get to the decision making that needs to happen around the kind of pitches that are going to be in place in UAE?
Yeah.
Because you have decisions to be made around Jadeja, Ashwin, and then Chahal, and I saw Ravi Bishnoi was in the team, so they do have plenty of spin options, and then a couple of younger seamers with Boomer being out, as you said. So before we get to the middle order, I guess, do you have any doubts that somebody like a Virat would be out of this team later in the group stages or in the Super 4 if he doesn't perform in the initial group stages?
No, not at all. They would be insane to to drop him. Like you said, his struggles have been well sort of catalogued, but ultimately he's still in the top probably 3 batsmen in the world comfortably. You don't take that risk and leave him out of the side in my books, particularly when, like, I know they've got a lot of match winners, but he's a genuine match winner, and I'm pretty strong on, I reckon he's going to bounce back in a pretty strong way in this tournament, use this to springboard himself into a big few months with obviously then the T20 World Cup coming up. I think his only risk is if he does fail in the Asia Cup, it starts to raise a bigger question mark for the T20 World Cup. He'll 100% be on the plane to Australia, but if he's had 4 or 5 chances or 4 chances in the Asia Cup to do his thing and still hasn't, then maybe there's a question mark there on whether or not he holds his place in the 11 for the T20 World Cup.
Yeah, I agree with you with Virat Kohli, although I'll slightly deviate by saying he's been, I don't know, out of form for what I would consider quite a long time. And I get it. He's a superstar. I get it. He's also got a lot of political pull and connections and all that sort of stuff. But I think you're right. He'll get Guernsey through the Asia Cup. And the bit I do agree with you also is if he's not, he continues to sort of be a bit lackluster through the Asia Cup, I think it probably gets to that point where there is just enough on the plate to bring that question and go beyond that. Because at the end of the day, if India's backs are against the wall in the T20 World Cup, is one man and his selection greater than the country's hopes winning a World Cup? That's just sort of my point of view, and I think how much pull does that guy really have? How much can he continue that pulling power? Yeah, I think maybe when backs to the wall, it might be different. Yeah,
no, I think you're right. If Sky wasn't in the form that he was in, if Pant has been in incredibly good form, I think if there were other players not performing there and you were consistently getting 3, 4, 5 wickets down for not a ton of runs, it might be a little tougher of a decision. But I think Brett is right. I think he actually has carte blanche until next year. I think he gets in that team even through the World Cup, even if he's struggling, because the Indian team have always built towards World Cups. I mean, I don't think they're going to make a rash decision right at this moment in time. And the thing is, anybody coming into that squad, especially, he will go to the World Cup in October and November. There's no question about that. Anybody who was to come in and replace him would be facing quite a bit of pressure and expectation to fill the boots of probably arguably their best batsman they've ever produced. It would be a tricky one.
Looking at their squad, Pandya back bowling and in the form that he's in balances out that side almost perfectly, where it pretty well, for me, in their top 6 or 7 just becomes a choice between either KL Rahul at the top of the order or Dinesh Karthik coming in at 6 or 7. Like, they've got some options there. I would probably keep Rahul at the top of the order and have Kohli at 3, but they could go the other way and let Kohli open with Sharma, like they did when Rahul was out at the side, and sort of keep that spot open for DK, who they've kind of groomed into that finisher role that he played so well for RCB in the IPL, and has basically been picked purely in that finisher role in T20 internationals for India since.
Yeah, he had a fantastic. I forget how good an IPL he had. It was fantastic. He had very, very good IPL, and RCB were in enough holes that he dug them out of to win matches, actually. So Yeah, they have options. Looking at the all rounder slot, you think Hardik Pandey is the only name that's nailed on that team sheet from an all rounding perspective?
Yeah, well, for me,
Yeah.
I think their side's pretty easy to pick. Like I've got, particularly considering the spinning conditions that they're likely to face. I'd be probably only playing 2 seamers and Pandya as the 3rd seamer, filling out the rest of the side and going pretty spin heavy. Go Jadeja, Ashwin, and Chahal all in the side with Kumar and Arshdeep as the 2 seamers.
I think I'm with you on that one. The only I think there may be occasions against certain opposition you may go for. Well, actually, I actually don't think that they will often go away from that because Boomer is not available. I just think because Arshdeep and Avesh Khan are still quite raw talents, to have both of them in the side is a big call to make. If you had Boomer in there, or even I know Shami is not in the squad, but if Shami was in there, you would have an argument where you would have 3 potentially top class seamers with Avesh Khan and Arshdeep Singh. I think you need that extra. I mean, Jadeja is a very handy, decent spinner. Ashwin is a top quality spinner. Chahal is a top quality spinner, and Jadeja and Ashwin give you runs. So I think it's easy as well. Actually, come to think of it.
Yeah. So that's where it starts. That's where you run out of spots pretty quickly. Because what if we've got Pandya at 6? It's that giving us Jadeja at 7, Ashwin 8, Kumar 9, Arshdeep 10, and Chahal 11. That really does leave DK or Rahul fighting for one spot in the 11. So,
Arnie, if there's a concern about this India team, or it's very, very strong on paper, what concerns to them winning the Asia Cup would you have, if any?
It's a rock star side. I think the concerns, we kind of raised it before, is Kohli's form. I also think that I think the no-brainer bit, but it still might exist, is because they are such a rock star team, and on paper and in practice, there might be a tiny bit of complacency. Although I think that Pakistan have shown their hand in beating them that one time in last year's World Cup, so perhaps won't want to suffer the same result. But I don't know, that side just looks so good. Like, you've got such a good dilemma where, you don't even know where to put people like Arshdeep Singh and Avesh Khan. Bishnoi might even miss us. They might miss spots. As Brett was mentioning, are you going to struggle to fit in DK? I know I'm struggling to find real holes with this team, other than, Kohli. Kohli's form continues to be flat, and perhaps a bit of complacency. Not saying that Hong Kong will beat them on the door, not even on the day, but that's my 2 things: Kohli's form and complacency, mate.
What about you, Brad? Do you have any concerns at all?
My only one, like, they're looking down the whole list, they're comfortably the most balanced side, I think, in the tournament. But I guess my concern for them is potentially around, there's been a bit of talk about the way that they're trying to reinvent their strategy and the way that they play the game to be a bit more aggressive, particularly up front. And at times they've struggled a little bit with it. Like, it's not necessarily the natural game of someone like KL Rahul, who likes to set himself to bat through the innings. It does create a little bit of risk that if they go hard, and they all go hard in the top 4 or 5, they can lose some wickets in bunches. Did see that a little bit in England, with but that was more with the ball swinging around, so I don't think they're going to have that too much of an issue with that. in the Asia Cup. But that's probably my one concern, is just them still coming to terms with the game style they want to play come October over here in Australia.
That's interesting.
Sorry, Craig. Just out of interest, how long have they been practicing this game plan or this game style? You wouldn't want to be changing it now, I guess, but how long has it been, you reckon?
It's probably been a little while. Definitely through their sort of last few T20 series, like when they came to England, they were pushing for that. And it's right the way through their white ball setup. It's a little bit of a take a page out of the England playbook and play that aggressive style of cricket and try and get on the front foot. They've always been a bit more traditional, pace the innings, fairly controlled early, and then sort of try to finish strong. But I think they're realising that the best teams have that extra gear and can go with controlled aggression right from the get-go.
Yeah, the two names that stick out for me as being in the mould of the likes of Butler and Bairstow and Roy and those guys who did all of the destructive batting for England are really Sharma and Pant. I don't view Rahul in that way. I don't view Virat Kohli in that way, even though he can be destructive. It's not overpowering the opposition. I don't view Sky in that way. Pandya always seemed to me more like a let's bring a steady to the innings and I'm gonna grind you down rather than blast you away. So yeah, I can see why it would be tough to deploy that. If Sharma and Pant get going, then it's a no-brainer. Yeah, you're not winning any game if they get going.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, controlled aggression. You're rolling the dice a bit, but a little bit controlled. And if you get off to that just blistering start, you've almost written your ticket, your ticket to victory. And I guess teams like England want to roll the dice, and maybe they've got it right. But yeah, if they're not informed, then who do you turn to? And like you've got for India there, you've made some really good points. Do you reckon they'll roll the dice? They'll probably give it a red hot go in the Asia Cup, but do you reckon they'll pull back on that if it doesn't work out for them?
Nah, from the sounds of things, with the changeover with Dravid coaching and Sharma's, like under Sharma's captaincy, it does sound like it's a very concerted effort to be a bit more positive and play positive cricket. Like they were still, even with their old method, they would still score plenty of runs, but I think they're just chasing a little bit more explosiveness throughout the innings, and I think they've got it in spades. Like Craig's right, the guys like Sharma and Pant, they're sort of right up there in terms of the most explosive batsmen in the world. Sky, I think, does have that gear. I don't think it's quite where he likes to be, but he's shown, well, more than glimpses, he's shown some pretty prolonged flashes and played some innings where he go at nearly sort of strike rates 170, 180 and hit the ball into, I guess, unorthodox places as well, which makes it hard for the opposition.
He played one of the best innings I've probably seen in a T20 international for quite a while against England. He scored a century.
Yeah, that was phenomenal.
And really made it was one of those innings where it made the opposition look like they had completely run out of ideas of what to do about him, which is probably going to be a problem for others in the competition. We'll get to our golden ball and our golden bat predictions maybe a little later on. Are we ready to close the book on India and maybe move on to Pakistan a little bit?
Yeah. Let's do it.
So let's move on to Pakistan, who I think are the only real question as to whether India are going to win this Asia Cup or not. We'll obviously get on to Group B in a little while, but if you were talking about an international team who were coming in well gelled, I think is probably the best way to express it. They have played because their players generally don't play a lot of franchise cricket. They're not in the IPL. They played a lot of international cricket together, and when you look at their squad, at the very top you have Babar. At the very top you have Rizwan, who have just seemed to be batting together. Rizwan's spent a little time in England, but have been batting together as a T20 pair for a long, long time. Do you think that Pakistan's chances rest more heavily on Babar and Rizwan versus the individual batters of India, say?
Yeah, I think you've nailed it there. They're basically the Pakistan, and as good as they are and as good as they have been, they do still rely very heavily on that ultra successful duo of Babar and Rizwan, and for good reason. Like they've both performed exceptionally well, but it does still have that little bit of an air, particularly when you start to look through their middle order. Once you get down past sort of 3-4, does have a little bit of that air of, if you can find a way to get Babar and Rizwan out, then you're a chance to roll through them.
Yeah, there's I don't know too much about Pakistan side, I must admit, but there is. I mean, you look at the two team sheets, India, Pakistan. Pakistan seems to have that, lack of better word, that sense of vulnerability. I guess in their order. So yeah, you're right. Apart from the fact they played a lot of international cricket together, which you don't want to discount, because understanding each other and knowing when to switch gears and all that, I think that's really important. Playing like a genuine team. It's not a bunch of individuals, right? You've got to play like a team. That's still really important. But yeah, there's again, I can't say that I know the team very well, but just there's still that sense of vulnerability with Pakistan. Although we say India are favourites, I still would like to think Pakistan are a bit of a dark horse to win this Asia Cup. Sorry, I've jumped the gun a bit there, guys, but that's my prediction. If I've jumped the gun, but yeah, I just think Pakistan are a bit vulnerable. Like if they lose one of the two star batters, I'm not sure where the runs are coming from. Yeah.
How much of that do you reckon is because they don't, like, compared to some of the sides like India, we see all their players through the IPL and they play a hell of a lot of international cricket, but how much of that do you reckon is just due to a bit of a lack of exposure across the wider cricketing world on some of these players? Like, obviously everyone knows Babar, everyone knows Mohammad Rizwan, everyone knows a lot of their bowling attack, but I just wonder whether there's, for people, whether I might be perhaps underrating some of these guys in the middle order. Like I know Zaman, he's a class player. They've got big raps on Iftikhar Ahmed, and just wonder if some of these other names I'm underrating just because I haven't seen too much of them.
You're possibly right. They're probably there for a reason, and I guess it might be. I mean, it can swing both ways, but it could swing the way where everyone's underrated, the Pakistan squad, and in fact they all know each other really well. They all know how to play like a really solid team because that's all they've been doing. They've all been spending time like that, and all of a sudden they just rip through everyone, and they're super confident right now. So, it might be
I
just missing them.
I think it's some of that, and I think it's also just a reflection on. I mean, if you go back to the last World Cup, I think Shahid Malik was in that side, who was around for a long, long time for Pakistan cricket. There's another name in there that I'm overlooking, but that also retired shortly after that World Cup. And I think
Mohammad Hafiz.
There you are. So I think you take those two names out of the side. I think there's Arnie and I were talking about this last week, where great thing about the IPL, great thing about franchise cricket is it does expose you more to that secondary level of talent that is not being picked in squads, but locally is known to be fantastic and being groomed, but perhaps you just don't see too much of it. So I think some of it is that, and not having that insight into the secondary level of talent and seeing that. I mean, you have the Pakistan franchise cricket league, but you're not seeing them in the IPL. You're not seeing them a ton in the Big Bash. You're not seeing them a ton in the Blast. And where you look at somebody like a Daniel Sams who really hasn't been on the Australian on the horizon to be on the Australian team, but we know a lot about Daniel Sams. We know a lot about what he can do, or somebody like a Tim David. I think there's a large piece of that, and probably that's why it's hard to call for Pakistan who the next man up after those three names you've mentioned, Brett. It's very difficult to say when Barbar goes down, when Rizwan goes down, who's the next man up, who's going to take about scruff of the neck. Pakistan have seemed to prove a lot of people wrong in the past. I feel like growing up in the 2000s, they were viewed as a team that can't field and had a lot of infighting whenever things didn't go their way. I don't view them that way anymore. I think that they are a very tight unit who have an air of confidence about them that will get the job done. I just don't know who's going to do that job outside of Babar and Rizwan, but I think someone will emerge from that group and possibly be a big name post Asia Cup and post World Cup.
Well, my concern.
Can I post? Oh, go ahead, Brett. Sorry.
No, I was going to say my concern.
Go, buddy.
For Pakistan is probably their next biggest strength, which is their fast bowling attack. Like India missing their spearhead with Shaheen out of the side. But then, it's still a formidable attack with sort of Haris Rauf and Naseem Shah. Craig's boy, Mohammad Hasnain, is being called into the squad to replace Shaheen. That's a genuine ace up their sleeve. They've got some guys who can really bowl and can really get the ball moving at pace. But I don't think the pitches are going to help them. Where India have the advantage of being able to go with a fairly strong spin-heavy attack. I mean, Usman Qadir is a very good bowler, and so is Shadab Khan. It's not like they don't have good spinners, but it's sort of taking away from what's probably their next biggest strength outside of the Rizwan Babar combo.
Yeah, he's certainly an X factor in world cricket for a bowler, which is rare. I think he's up there in that upper echelon with the likes of perhaps a Mitchell Stark, a Bumrah, Archer whenever he was playing. I think those are the kind of names that I think of. He can win a game for you. And I was sad to see. I think he's in a knee brace. I saw him in a knee brace. So I don't know. There's so many injuries to world fast bowlers at the moment. It's kind of sad to see that you're not going to get a lot of the talent at the Asia Cup. And perhaps there's smoke and mirrors in the background where they're resting Bumrah and they're resting Afridi for the World Cup.
Yeah.
You've got the...
I was going to say that, I mean, let's face it, they're going to experiment through this Asia Cup, and I think they'd like to win it, but I think there's a lot of experimentation going on, and probably holding a few cards up their sleeves. That's why I think Pakistan could possibly win the Asia Cup. Do you know what I'm saying? Because they might not show everything that they're planning. They're ironing things out. They're ready to fire, but I don't think they're going to. I don't know. I don't think they're going to let the cat out of the bag. That's how I feel. I think Asia Cup's a good warm up, but I don't think I'll do everything to try and win it. Yeah.
Well, if we're thinking about their chances of winning it, Arnie, I think I don't think any of us have any doubts that India and Pakistan will progress out of Group A. Hong Kong will be the other. So they're basically assured a place in the Super 4. And then we'll go into Group B in a second, but I would still expect both these teams to beat Sri Lanka, beat Bangladesh, and beat Afghanistan fairly handily, actually, based on the squads they put forward. So I think it comes down to on your day in the final, when I think it will be Pakistan versus India, do Babar and do Rizwan get the job done? I think it really comes down to that. That's the question mark for a victory. On the reverse side, though, if Babar and Rizwan do perform and do get it done, I would still give India a shot at beating them in the second innings. Whereas if Rizwan and Babar don't get it done, I think it's India's for the taking fairly easily.
Yeah. There's no real, again, not a lot of backup plans for Pakistan, but maybe just based on our lack of true info on the Pakistan team. Sorry, Brett, go ahead, bud. mate.
I was going to say, I think in that scenario, Pakistan would want to be chasing, try and contain the Indian batting lineup as best they can, and then know what the job is in front of Babar and Rizwan, and then bank on some other contributions to right the way down the order. That's probably their thing, that they play as a good side, and you watch a lot of their scorecards. They don't have too many people get out for not much. You get these little 10s and 15s and 20s tend to chip in the right the way down through the order. And the back end of a T20, like if you've got getting into the last 5 overs and you've got a set Rizwan or a set Babar at one end, and then you've got these guys just coming in and being able to hit 10 off 4 or 5 balls, 15 off 5 balls, like those kind of things, yeah. You like it all adds up pretty quickly.
It's the compound interest team. Every little piece adds up.
Yeah.
The economists.
You're right. And as long as they keep the strike rate, as long as they keep that strike rate high, then it totally plays out what Brett's saying. They're just little contributions of 10, 15 here, but at a high strike rate, all of a sudden they're always up with finishing in the last over, right? Even if they're limping, not really limping, but even if it's 8 out or 9 out, you never,
Yeah. I think the other big piece of news recently was Mohammad Wasim, who had impressed in some of the more recent T20s. He's now in injury concern as well. So they do have something going on in their bowling unit there around their fast bowling and their seamers. That could be a concern for them. But point to any team in world cricket and they have that right now. So it's kind of
probably got a lot to do with bowling on the absolute roads in Pakistan since they've been back playing in the country. Those pitches haven't exactly been breaking up too much.
When I turned on and watched that series between Australia and Pakistan have like a shade or a color of wicket that you never see anywhere else. It's grey. It's just it legitimately looks like concrete.
It legitimately has asphalt in it.
Exactly, yeah. Doubles as an airstrip, basically.
When they say road.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else need to get any thoughts out in Pakistan before we move on to Group B, which is going to be a total lottery?
No, they'll make the final.
Yeah. You have it. We both have India. We all have India, Pakistan, both coming out of Group A and both making the final.
Yeah. I've only got one smoky that might be able to throw a little spanner in the works, and we'll get to them in Group B.
All right. Well, let's go into Group B and don't keep us in suspense. Who's your smoky from Group B?
Looking at the side that they've rolled out and the squad that they've rolled out, I can't help but think in the conditions that are going to be presented that Sri Lanka just have a little sort of outside chance of being able to spring an upset purely on the strength of their spin attack. Like they could pretty much field a side. Like Chamira's injured, they're going to field a side that's probably going to be very spin heavy. It's going to be led by Hasaranga and Tikshana, who are both exceptionally good spinners, even more so in Asian conditions. And they're going to be out, like even the guys that are going to bowl sort of medium pace in their attack. You're talking Karunaratne and who's the other fella? Asalanka. They're gonna, like, they're sort of all rounders. So I think they're gonna be able to go with a deep attack and like a very deep batting lineup and a very spin heavy bowling attack that is gonna potentially cause some issues on the right day, on the right pitch.
Yeah, so you had watched a good, so Sri Lanka had a series against Australia not that long ago. I didn't see a ton of it. When they gave the Aussies trouble, what was the thing that clicked? Because I've always viewed those Sri Lankan bowlers as incredibly effective. But for years and years and years, they had a very, very solid, consistent top 4 or 5. I mean, you think about the names like Sanath Jayasuriya, he's probably in an all-time Asia Cup 11. Sangakkara, probably in an all-time Asia Cup 11. Jayawardena, I mean, you could, even Angelo Matthews, you could go through a few, but it seems to me the batting is a thing that doesn't click when they don't win. They kind of get out cheaply and they don't have a total to defend. Is that what happens in reality?
Yeah, yes and no. I think they're kind of in a similar boat at different stages in their development, but at a similar boat to India in terms of trying to play some more positive cricket, where they've struggled even when they came to Australia last summer or the summer before. And it had been, it was an improvement that I noticed when we went over to Sri Lanka and played them there. The rotation of strike and keeping the scoreboard ticking can be a bit of an issue for them with the bat. They've got guys who hit the ball very well now, like guys like Gunathilaka. Nissanka will set himself and try and bat most of the day, but Asalanka, Dasan Shanaka, they all hit the ball exceptionally well, can score freely, but if you can just tie them down a bit, they don't have, or they can struggle with the ability to keep the scoreboard ticking, get bogged down, play a silly shot, then all of a sudden you're in a bit of a hole and can't quite dig their way out of it. But the depth, without the, I guess, what you'd call pure top-end talent, like they don't have guys that are the class of your Sharmas, Kohlis, Rizwans, Babar Azams, but they've built a reasonable batting order with some depth. Like they don't fall away too quickly anymore in terms of they'll probably open with Nissanka and Gunathilaka. You'll have Asalanka in there. You'll have Kusal Mendes. He is in a rich vein of form. And the other one, Dinesh Chandimal, who sort of burst onto the scene, then faded away, has come back with this real sort of lease in life, batting in the mid to lower order. Yeah, almost playing a similar role to someone like DK and finishing innings. So they've got a bit of depth now, and even someone like Hasaranga is more than handy with the bat. That without the real top end talent, they've still got enough depth that they can put a score on the board. And if you get them in the right spot, they do have some dangerous batsmen who can get away from you pretty quickly if you're not on the game.
Yeah, I think you're. Sorry, go ahead, Arnie.
No, I was just going to say, and this is the team that had to play qualifiers in the T20 World Cup last year. Are we saying, or are you hinting that they may top Group B, or do you still think like a Bangladesh may be there?
I would expect Sri Lanka to probably top Group B. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I think maybe to the casual observer that there are a lot of names on this team that maybe haven't been around world cricket for years. Shanaka obviously sticks out as captain. Chandimal sticks out. Hasaranga is probably the most well-known name on that team. But I don't. You make a compelling argument from the bowling side of things. I don't think that any team can come up against Sri Lanka and say, if you think about their bowling attack back in the day with Murali in ODI cricket, there was almost just this idea of give him his 10 overs, give him 40 for one, and we'll have a great chance to win this game. I don't think that you can do that with Hasaranga because Deekshana is a top operator. I think he can really hold himself well. Hasaranga is obviously the big name on the team sheet, but I think they do have 8 to 12 good overs of spin in their team where you will have to attack somebody like a Hasaranga. You will have to attack somebody like a Deekshana. So I think that you're right. They have the opportunity to upset teams. In the Super 4, I think they will be the team that India and Pakistan will be concerned about, that if they get those fantastic 8 overs out of Deekshana, Hasaranga, that they could win you a game for sure.
Yeah, good point. Good insights, guys.
Anything else on Sri Lanka then?
No, not really. As I said, we'll probably get to it a little bit later, but I think they'll need spinning conditions. Like, they won't want just these flat, slowish pitches that you might be fronted with over there. They'll need the pitches to take some turn, so that they can play to their strengths. Like, they're in their element where they can play 3 to 4 frontline spinners and then supplement it with some medium pace bowlers. Like, if they're in a scenario where they can open with, say, Karunaratne bowling some medium pace and Tikshana, and then go to Hasaranga and maybe someone like Jeffrey Vandersay, they'll be very happy. It's if they're forced to rejig the team too much and bring in an extra couple of medium paces or medium fast bowlers, particularly without Chamira in the squad, that's where they're not going to be comfortable, and they're going to be exposed in terms of, Hasaranga's a good bowler in pretty well any conditions. Same can be said for Tikshana, but if they have to bowl, if they're sort of forced into bowling 12 overs of medium pace, I don't think they've got the depth or the top end talent in those stocks to cause any real concern for any of the either of India or Pakistan.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is that if we say top 3 and say Sri Lanka's in that top 3, Sri Lanka are more at the mercy of the conditions, pitch, like you say, if it's not spin friendly, they're going to struggle, whereas you've got more versatility with the India and Pakistan squads. So you're right. On that day, like you say, Sri Lanka might have a spin friendly pitch and they might just pull off that upset. But if it's not there, maybe what you're saying is they'll struggle.
Primed for, I think, could be in for a big tournament just in that kind of all-round role and could be that third or fourth spinner for Sri Lanka. It will probably be the third if they have to play the extra pace bowler, or could be a fourth if they go with a really spin-heavy attack. Dhananjaya De Silva, he's been in some pretty good nick with the bat, but bowling more than handy offies as well.
Okay.
He's probably the one that I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out of the Asia Cup with a bit of an enhanced reputation.
Who's the I forget the name of the team sheet escapes me, but there's a bowler that's been added that kind of has that Lasith Nalinga action.
All right.
Pathirana.
That's who I'm. I mean, speaking purely on entertainment value, I would like to see a bit of Pathirana for that reason. Just kind of the second coming of Lasith Malinga.
Reincarnate.
Exactly. Yeah.
That action is like Malinga on steroids. Like, it is way lower than Malinga's action ever got.
Oh, really?
Like, Malinga was very low. This guy is legit just 90 degrees. Like, there's a couple where it almost looks like he's underarming the ball.
But he didn't go through the school of overarm coach bowling, right?
He went through the school of, I've grown up watching Lasith Malinga crush people's toes, and I'm going to bowl exactly like that.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to lots of slow motion replays of the ball looking like a flying saucer with like the seam on the side, like almost going like an equator of the ball. Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Arnie.
No, go for it, mate. Go for it. Go for it.
Well, we move on to a bit of Bangladesh then, who had a little bit of a tough time in Zimbabwe. They come under some heavy fire from Sikandar Raza, who was just performing some incredible individual performances to help Zimbabwe win that series down there. Now, they didn't have Shakib Al Hassan, who is an incredibly important player for them. I think, in my opinion, that Bangladesh are probably coming in with more baggage than they wanted to after having lost that series. And yeah, how do you rate their chances? Because I agree with Brett that I think Sri Lanka are going to get out of Group B either probably as the top seed there. I think that it's closer between Bangladesh and Afghanistan than some folks would imagine. I don't think Afghanistan deserve to have that air of being a pure minnow nation anymore. They do have some top performers. So, do we rate Bangladesh's chances coming out of that group or Afghanistan's? Maybe we'll start there.
I feel they're all three very close teams. I just without looking at the squad list, my vibe of the three. I just think they're all very close. I mean, I'm surprised because Sri Lanka was trying to qualify last year or the last World Cup, and now they're just blasting through. But they are solid. But I feel Bangladesh might get through. That's my feeling. Not so much Afghanistan, but that's just a feeling. I don't have any stats. So you guys are the great insights. I don't have any of that. It's just my vibe.
Yeah. On paper, like Bangladesh still have some good pieces there. Like there are some good players and some players that some people out there might not be super familiar with. Like everyone knows Shakib and how he is essentially the genuine sort of talisman of Bangladesh cricket. Like when he's in the side, they all walk taller. He just has that genuine uplifting effect on the side. But like you got Mustafiza Rahman, Hadi Hassan Miraz, guys like that who are genuinely good players and do make a little bit of a mark around the world. Mahmudullah has been around for a while and is a nice solid player, but I think they're in a bit of a transitional period, and while they've got these players, they might get some good individual performances out of certain players, but unlike someone like Pakistan who play very well as a team, I don't think they've got that synergy to really perform when it matters. And I was kind of reading a few articles sort of through the week, and the headline of one of them was something about Shakib isn't aiming to win the Asia Cup, just wants to see the trend improving from where it's been, basically, because they've been terribly disappointing through their last couple of tours, like Zimbabwe, the West Indies before that. They're not playing great sides, and they're getting
that says a lot, right?
well blown off the park.
You're right. That says a lot, which means maybe they just want to purely stick to the basics, which may be a bit of a revival for them. You don't know. Maybe that's all they'll do. They'll just stick to the basics. Don't care too much about the results. They just want to see each player really contribute and do the basics right. Don't know, but that's a good point. That's good insights, Brett.
Yeah, just when you talk about the transitioning, when you've looked at any Bangladeshi team over the last little while, there always have been those 2 to 3 big names on it. Shakib Al Hasan, Tamim Iqbal was one of those guys who is obviously not in this squad. So you're right. You see those hallmarks of the team kind of trying to move on. I think that they'll be familiar enough with their opposition, which sometimes helps when you're going through a bit of a transitional period. And again, the pitches that we should get in the UAE should be shorter boundaries. Again, conditions that all of these teams are used to, but again, offers a bit more familiarity. If there was a World Cup tomorrow in England, I think Bangladesh would be in big trouble. I think conditions matter more for them, given some of this transitional talent that's coming into their side.
Yeah. So now we've got Afghanistan as the last member of Group B.
Yeah, so I'm going to put my head on the chopping block. I think Afghanistan are going to come out of Group B along with Sri Lanka. I think similarly to what we said about Pakistan, They are a unit that's been around each other a lot. They're still coming out as a nation that's only recently transitioned to be a test nation, and probably the only one that's playing like it deserves to be a test nation. Out of Ireland and the two of them, they have been around each other a lot. They have 3 or 4 good quality players, one absolute superstar in Rashid Khan. Mohamed Nabi, I think, is also, you could argue, maybe not a superstar, but is definitely a star in that side. Zazai, names like this, like those, I think when they look at their playing 11, I think they'll be confident of what that playing 11 is, and they'll be confident of the approach that they want to take. Rashid Khan is going to be key to them in the conditions. Mohamed Nabi is going to be, again, key to them in the conditions, but also in terms of contributing with bat and ball, he's been phenomenal. And with people like Zazai and Gorbaz up the order, they do have that ability to destroy an attack. To destroy an attack, a few of these guys have hit 50s in 20 something balls, 22, 23, 24 balls. So I think if you're looking for them to beat a team, I think they have the opportunity to beat them handily, get a good net run rate, and I think that Bangladesh are. If I was a Bangladeshi coach, I'd be a little bit worried about this Afghanistani team for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more there. I actually think this will be the tournament that Afghanistan really announced themselves as stepping out of that minnow tag and sort of announce themselves that they can genuinely compete at a world level. All the players you mentioned, you bang on the money. Someone like Gurbaz, I'm really excited to see. Hajratullah Zazai as well. Even Faruqi with the new ball. They've got the players that we know about, but it's like they've already got this second generation or second wave of players that have quietly come through their development pathway and are ready to make their own mark as well. So it's not just a reliance on Nabi and Rashid to do it all. Got Mujib, who should be, I still think, in there playing 11. More so for the fact that, and more looking forward to the T20 World Cup in Australia and how well he bowls over here when he plays for the Brisbane Heat. He's very, very, very good bowler, but he's probably competing with Ahmed for the young left arm spinner for that, I guess, third spinner behind Nabi and Rashid.
They've had plenty of opportunity to get those guys game time as well, which I like. One of the downsides to having a team littered with franchise cricket players is that you don't have a lot of time to test out the likes of the Avesh Khans and the Arshdeep Singhs in the international setting, whereas Afghanistan have just come off of a 5-day T20 series against Ireland. I believe they were playing against the West Indies before that. That transition out of that minnow status, which I've got to find a better word to use it because they're not, but they obviously had a lot of that cricket planned on the calendar before the decision was made. So they're still playing a lot of that ODI cricket. They're still playing a lot of those lower nations and have the chance to give those guys you've noted a game. So they lost the test series, or not the test series, they lost the T20 series against Ireland, but having watched a lot of that, the team was chopping and changing, and you could see that they were looking to get the playing 11 settled down. And Rashid Khan did not play all those games. Mohamed Nabi, I don't think, played any of those games. So they have depth and talent where they can compete against not upper echelon talent, but international cricket talent in conditions they're not typically familiar with. I do think that they stand a chance of getting through to the Super 4. And again, like we said with Sri Lanka, can defeat any team on their day if their top performers get going and they have a couple of extra folks chipping in.
So any team with Rashid Khan in it, you need to be wary of. particularly in the T20 format and particularly in Asian conditions. Like, he is a genuine superstar. And I think it probably says as much about their development in the fact that they don't have to go through the next round of qualifying in the T20 World Cup. They're one of the top 8 that have genuinely qualified and made it, where the likes of Sri Lanka, the West Indies, Ireland, Scotland, Singapore, I think, and one
Zimbabwe,
Zimbabwe and the Netherlands. They still have to go through the final round of qualifying to make it into the Super 12 stage of the T20 World Cup. So, like, there's Sri Lanka and the West Indies in particular, and I guess to a lesser extent Ireland, as some teams that we genuinely associate with being on the world stage at these World Cups. So to beat them out to a qualifying spot is a big feather in the cap of these guys and what they're doing and how far they've come.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, any final thoughts before we get on to talking about predictions?
No, I think I've pretty much exhausted mine.
Grand. Okay, so Arnie, who we're going to go for who's going to win, who's going to be golden bat, and who's going to be golden ball. So golden bat's most runs, golden balls most wickets. Yep. So Arnie, give us your winner and your 2 superstars of the tournament.
All right. I'm going to go for Pakistan, and golden ball I'm going to go for Shahal from India, and golden bat I'm going to go for Babar Azam, because I think Pakistan will win it.
I think those are going to be popular choices.
Yeah.
I suspect that we had all 3 of those names on our short list. Brett, what about you? Are you following suit with Babar?
I'll start off by saying yes, I think so, but I'm going to go differently just for the sake of a bit of variation and not us not all having the same thing. But I'm going with India, golden ball Ashwin, and golden bat I'm going with Kohli. I think he's due to return to form in a big way.
Ooh.
That's interesting. That is
huge,
interesting.
mate, especially Kohli, mate.
And that was hard for me to say because
you don't like him.
I'm not a huge fan of Kohli the person. I respect the hell out of Kohli the cricketer. Well, I can't say I'm not a fan of Kohli the person. I've never met the guy, but his persona on the field and just through a natural sort of competitive rivalry, I'm not a huge fan of him, I guess, overall. But respect the hell out of the guy, and him making runs is good for the game. The same with Ashwin.
Can I ask you a quick question? How much of that is because of his antics on the around the Test series in Australia, maybe about 2?
Oh, very much so. His general,
it's probably his relationship with Australia. Yeah,
not even so much that. His demeanour on the field. He actually probably won a bit more respect last time they were over, even in the World Cup, with Smith and Warner coming back into the side and him trying to quieten down the. Trying to quieten it down the Indian fans,
actually, you're right.
It's probably a little bit of tall poppy syndrome kind of thing. Like, as a cricketer, respect the hell out of the bloke, but he probably just some of the on-field stuff just rubs you up the wrong way a little bit. But there's no doubt that him making runs is good for the game.
Oh, absolutely. It's good for cricket, for sure.
Okay, well, I think that Pakistan, or I think India, are going to win. If Shaheen Afridi hadn't get injured, I would have been very, very tempted to pick Pakistan. I think that's just too big a loss. They don't have the depth of talent to replace an incredibly talented bowler like that. So I think I'm going to go with India. On the golden bat, I'm going to go for Rizwan. I think that he is under the radar yet again after having a fantastic World Cup. And then for the golden ball, I'm going to go for Hasaranga. I think that he's going to get 4 overs every single time. I think his team are going to be in a situation where they're chasing and have to be aggressive, and he may come into the game earlier than maybe some of the other spinners were. But I think the big question mark there is, will he play enough games, and will they get out of the group stages over Afghanistan and Bangladesh? But Hasaranga is my pick for that.
Can I throw one more sort of prediction on the table to get a sort of question without notice for you two boys? Who do you think, who would be your pick to come out of this tournament with a bit of an enhanced reputation, and someone that been a little bit off the radar? Like we all know about the superstars, but who's your sort of dark horse to get, do you think could well take the tournament by storm?
Oh, that's a good one.
Let's go for Gunna Thilika. Let's go for them. Again, I think that there needs to be someone in the Sri Lankan setup that puts their hand. Like, if there's a team that needs that kind of person to come out, it's going to have to be Bangladesh, or it's going to have to be Sri Lanka. I think the other teams know what they're about. I think they know the sides that they would like to pick. I think they probably all know their strategy going into the World Cup. But I think Sri Lanka probably have more question marks around that World Cup squad after the Asia Cup than others. So let's go for Gunna Thilika.
Yeah, for me,
go for it.
Go ahead, Arnie.
No. I actually have no idea. I only know really the superstars, mate. But and look, to be honest, the less superstars of India. I mean, I don't know. Like, there's a couple of players in the. I'll go with the Indian squad. The couple of players with the Indian squad that I just don't think seem to get as much press, just because there's so many other rock stars. But like Arshdeep Singh and Bishnoi kind of gets a little bit of press, but not a lot, just with all of them. But I'm hoping someone from Bangladesh, given how much we've said about Bangladesh in this podcast, I'm hoping a superstar rises from the ashes from Bangladesh. But I don't have a name, guys, other than the ones I mentioned in India.
Yeah, okay. From Bangladesh, you're probably looking at someone like an Animal Huck,
okay,
who could put together some nice innings at the top of the order. Apart from that, there's like the names that Bangladesh are going to need to perform are probably the names that we already know. For me, I mentioned Dhananjaya De Silva earlier. I think he bowls more than handy off spin and plays a pretty important role in that middle order. But the one that I really think could put the world on notice heading into the T20 World Cup is Theekshana. Watched a hell of a lot of him when Australia toured Sri Lanka, and new ball, old ball, he's a threat. He's got a little bit of mystery about him. He's got a few tricks up his sleeve. I think these conditions are going to suit him very well. And with all the focus on teams going into, like Craig kind of mentioned, you're going to have to attack somebody. And with all the focus on Hasaranga, I think he could potentially be a little bit of a banana peel for some of these batting lineups to go, okay, well, we're going to sit on Hasaranga, but we got to go after Theekshana, and he could make them look pretty silly.
Yeah, and they all get out. Yeah, spot on.
I think if there's a pace bowler, I think Naveen. I was just looking up the notes there. Naveen Al-Haq for Afghanistan. I think he could. He's a youngster. He could probably factor in somewhere. So yeah, well, that would be my pick from a bowling standpoint. Somebody who has a better raw pace, youngster, and as not a spinner. You know, I think there's a chance that folks focus so much on spinners that there will be a pace bowler that comes out of this. And actually, the top teams don't really have, maybe with the exception of Pakistan and India in Bhuvanesh Kumar, don't really have a standout pace man. So at the end of the day, when we pick when the team of the tournament's announced, there will be an unknown name in that seeming spot, almost certainly. So I'll go for Nadine Hack down there.
Yeah, and just back on the essentially the India versus Pakistan sort of query, I will qualify my India pick by saying if this was the genuine T20 World Cup and it was in Australia, I would be going Pakistan 100%. I think
right. Yep.
At full strength and being able to, guys like Baba and Rizwan, well, they bat well in any conditions, but they will bat well in Australian conditions. And the extra, I guess, to then be able to use the next string to their bow, which is their pace bowling attack. Assuming Shaheen was fit as well, and Bumrah would if they come to Australia and they roll out an attack that's got Haris Rauf, who has played in Australia quite successfully, Shaheen Afridi, someone like Naseem Shah, who is just raw and exuberant and can be expensive, but can also genuinely rip an attack apart. And then with the support of Shadab Khan, Usman Qadir, I think their side and their attack is actually pretty well suited to Australian conditions.
Agreed. About a month ago, they were my pick for the World Cup. I think that Shaheen Afridi presence in the squad is going to be so critical to them. But we shall return to this discussion someday for sure. As we go up to the World Cup. Okay, so we're just over an hour in. So why don't we transition away from Asia Cup and start to wrap up. So typically on the podcast here, we do our 6 and outs of the week. So the 6 being the thing that's been good this week that we've seen, the out being the thing that's not been so good. Brett, saying as you've been away for a little while, why don't you give us your 6 and your out of the week?
Sure. And well, actually, looking back at my notes here, my 6 and out are probably more from last week on the pod that I missed. But in relation to my previous out, which was Meg Lanning dropping a hat-trick ball off Alana King, my 6 this week is Alana King actually getting a hat-trick in the 100 for the Trent Rockets women's side. It was a nice little bit of poetic justice for that to happen again. Coincidentally, Meg Lanning was also supposed to play for the Trent Rockets, but has taken an extended break from cricket. But it was a nice little moment for her to get that hat trick, and she had a little tribute to Warnie as well. My out, and we've covered it pretty extensively tonight, is just injuries to fast bowlers. Like, cricket's a better game when you've got your spearheads steaming in and being able to bowl at the peak of their powers. Like, India versus Pakistan is always exciting, but taking Bumrah and Shaheen out of those sides it does sort of dampen the sort of anticipation a little bit. Like, who didn't want to see Shaheen steaming in with a new ball bowling to Rohit or Kohli or any of the superstars in the Indian batting lineup? And same the other way, Bumrah come steaming in bowling to Baba and Rizwan. It just takes a little bit of a gloss out of that challenge. But that said, I expect that both Bumrah and Shaheen would have played if this was the actual World Cup.
Yeah.
I think it's more niggle management and making sure they're cherry ripe for the World Cup. But if they had to play at the moment, I think they would have.
I mean, Bumrah does have a history of injury. I don't know how much of an injury history Shaheen Afridi has. I suspect you're right that it's load management, as they would say. But there's got to be some recognition that the amount of cricket these guys are playing, just doesn't agree with their body. I talked to somebody not that long ago about the baseball scene in America, and you have kids over here he was complaining that because soccer is now a bigger thing with kids in America, it's a sport that's played year round. Whereas in the past, you played basketball or baseball in the summer, and you played football, American football for the boys, in the winter. But because football was an all-around sport, the top tier talent was going to places like Florida and playing all year round. And so the other sports noticed this, and then baseball caught on and went, well, we can do that. We can send people to Florida. We can have our top tier talent play all year round. And you have a lot of young pitchers, like bowlers, getting surgeries extremely young in their career. We're talking 16, 17, 18, to just get it over and done with. Just they have this surgery here called Tommy John surgery. It's going to happen. Just get it over and done with, and you'll come back. And I think that we're seeing something similar in international cricket, where these guys are picked up at those ages, and they play cricket all around the world. And whether it's a development of the bodies, or there's the cricket bowling action is not exactly natural. It's worrying. Yeah, you want to see these guys more often than you are currently seeing them right now.
Yeah, and everybody's bodies have different thresholds, and we're seeing the ones that are more exposed break down. So, yeah, and don't forget the mental health aspect as well. But sorry, Brett, go ahead.
100%. The other one, that's kind of probably the poster boy for injured fast bowlers is Jofra Archer. Like, everyone wants to see the dude get on the park and do what he did in the short bursts that we actually got to see from him. But every time it's looked like he's on the way back, there's a flare up and he's out again.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, Arnie, what are your 6andOuts of the week?
I also wanted to mention the Alana King hat trick, but I'm going to go with a couple of others that are less cricket related and a little bit off of the last podcast, to be honest. So my 6 is I managed to get back to my streaming and ticked a few boxes there, so I'm really pleased about that because that's like a big deal to me. Settling in a little bit more here in my new city, and I got my suitcase back, so I've got clothes and things that are a bit more civilized, right? So that's my 6. My out is a typhoon just swept through here in Hong Kong, so that wasn't fun. And the fact that been out of work for a while, so I'm lacking funds for things like NFT projects and their drops and stuff like that. But job hunting's progressing and all that. But that would be my outs, just the whole typhoon and needing to get access to more funds so I can keep enjoying life the way that it should be enjoyed, right? Mm-hmm. So they're my 6 and out. Nothing too flash.
Had you been in a typhoon before, Arnie?
Oh, yeah, look, typhoon's, I guess, another word for cyclone, and I grew up in Darwin, again, in the tropics, so I've encountered and experienced quite a number of cyclones, so it's fine. I don't get spooked by it, but, yeah, they're not fun things because, everything goes into shutdown, basically. So, yeah, no, so to answer your question, yes, I've been through strong winds before.
Okay, I'll move on to mine. So my 6 of the week is actually a bit of an Aussie-Irish mashup, this one. My 6th of the week goes to a wallaby called Winnie, who after arriving in Northern Ireland, where I'm from, escaped from her enclosure at a town near Omagh and was on the run for a couple of days. But thankfully they caught her around, I think it was like midnight. I don't know where they found her. And she's since been happily reunited with her companion Jeffrey. So shout out to Jeffrey and Winnie in Ireland, the 2 wallabies. I don't know why they brought these.
Come up with this stuff, right?
I don't know. If you were a wallaby, I actually was thinking about this. If you were a wallaby and you're, darting around in the outback, the last place you want to be is Northern Ireland. It rains consistently. It seems miserable. It's like
Absolutely.
It's kind of the reverse kind of. It's kind of the reverse kind of sending the prisoners down to Australia back in the 1800s. They're now sending them up to Ireland for punishment.
Maybe Winnie was looking for the local rugby match. I don't know.
Maybe. Who knows? Yeah.
I had this picture of a wallaby sort of going full Lord of the Rings and just going, we're going on an adventure.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome.
It's actually not, and the reason I brought this up is that it's not the first exotic animal that we have lost in Ireland, in Northern Ireland. Because whenever I was going up there, I was 15 or 16. Somebody lost a panther, like and they never found it. Like, there were people coming from all around the Ballyboogie panther, going into forests, going into marshland, looking for this mysterious panther, and they never found it. So it's either still out there terrorizing sheep and cattle, or maybe it migrated to the south of Ireland somewhere. So anyway, that's my 6th week, and then my out of the week is you might know that there's a Conservative leadership election going on in the UK at the moment. So there's 2 candidates to replace Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss. Now Rishi Sunak this week was doing a nice little fluff piece with the I think it was the Daily Mail to try and make himself more relatable. And so how could you be more relatable than asking someone what their favorite meal at McDonald's is? So Arnie, what's your favorite meal at McDonald's?
They don't actually have it here in Hong Kong, believe it or not, but I do like a quarter pounder combo meal.
Arnie, that's a great answer. Brett, what's your favorite McDonald's meal?
I'm not going to go too different here. It is the quarter pounder combo.
Exactly.
They occasionally rotate with the Big Mac.
Exactly. Maybe weigh in a Big Mac and a Coke. Well, poor old Rishi Sunak was asked this question, and he said that his favorite item on the breakfast menu is the breakfast wrap. Now, aside from being a bit of a crap answer, the breakfast wrap hasn't been at McDonald's for 3.5 years. So the whole thing about trying to be more relatable, he should have just said the Big Mac. So yeah,
I would have said the Big Mac.
Yeah, don't try to be fancy, Rishi. Nobody.
The Filet O Fish is still on the menu.
I really thought that's where you were going with that. If he said the Filet O Fish is his favourite, I was gonna, I don't know, send him an email or something and just.
But the breakfast wrap, 3 years.
Election losing material. But even if you're going if you're going to McDonald's for breakfast, even it's got to be a sausage and egg McMuffin or an egg McMuffin.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
Anyway,
or even just say
a fan of the bacon
coffee.
and
I
egg.
just order a McCafe coffee, and that's it. That's all I'm going to have. At least he can't stuff that up too badly. Everyone likes the coffee, right?
Everybody likes
Maybe not a McCafe.
Everybody likes a McMuffin. Everybody likes a Big Mac. I don't know.
Yeah.
He really, screwed the pooch on that one. So that's my.
He found the smallest way of screwing it up.
Yeah. What'd you say, Brett?
Yeah.
He could have picked literally anything on the menu except for the Filet O Fish and been okay.
Yeah.
He picked something that's not on the menu.
which is still in your books better than picking the Filet O Fish.
Yes.
Clearly.
The Filet O Fish is actually my father-in-law's favorite item on that menu, so I'm going to have to tell him that it's unacceptable. I'm going to have to make some corrections, Brett.
Just let him watch the podcast.
That's it. May win the election. He might talk about cricket. That might help.
Yeah, true.
Actually, while we're talking politics, is anyone across the story with the Prime Minister from Finland who likes to go and party? Perhaps a little bit too much.
Yeah, and I kind of felt sorry for her at first. I kind of had this just leave her alone. She's just trying to party. But she was fairly, with the risk of sounding quite old, fairly getting on down. Yeah, she was she was having a good time to herself for sure.
I'd vote for her.
I think that's certainly more relatable than eating a food.
More relatable.
A personality that's it's like an accountant with a personality.
Okay.
That was a little self-burn for any of our viewers that don't know that I'm an accountant. So
the numbers, man. All right. Do we have any final grievances to air before we move on? No. Okay. So why don't we wrap it up there? Listen, thanks to everybody for listening. That was our Asia Cup preview. Didn't expect to get in the realms of talking about Filet O Fish and that kind of stuff, but that's why you listen. So thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with more material. Arnie, Brett, good to chat to you guys.
Catch you later, guys.
Thank you guys.